Okay, I guess nothing. All right, good enough. We'll jump into the new material. So what are we going to cover today? We're going to talk about feel rest. That's the practice I'm introducing today. So feel rest, like the majority of the other techniques in the course, are from Shinzen Young. Oh, wait, one moment here. There's a comment from Archum. Hi, I was impressed how many tasks work on automation. Oh yeah, definitely, totally. Like, the majority of what we do all day is unconscious. And so in a sense, you're opening up to, you're kind of, the thought is to bring consciousness to that which is unconscious. I mean, it's a fantastic practice. All right, now we've gotten talking about it. Any other comments? Okay, good. All right, we'll just jump into the new material. Okay, rest. So feel rest. So feel rest is a noting technique. So it's a form of vipassana. It is similar to see, hear, feel, except for we put to the side see and hear, and we focus on feel. And that is both feel out, so like feeling the body, and also feel in, which would mean making contact with emotions. And that's just kind of the language that Shinzen Young uses to kind of match the modularity of the rest of the system. Okay. But then there's this issue of rest, and this is a new term in terms of unified mindfulness. And like everything with Shinzen, rest is a technical term. So what does he mean by that? So it means all the things that you think it means, like tranquility, maybe not tiredness, but so certainly restfulness, tranquility, etc. But the way that Shinzen really, what he really hones in on, and that I think is quite interesting, is this idea of deactivation. In a sense, what is not really arising strongly. In a sense, what can't be, in a sense, with rest, you're looking for the subtlest thing, the thing that's almost not there. So there's something about this practice that's kind of cool. It has like a koan aspect to it. Like you're looking for something that isn't like really gross and in your face. Rather, it's so subtle that it's not even there. And like koan study, you're doing something with the mind that kind of undermines the mind itself. So if you really lean into feeling rest, yeah, I think there's a transcendental quality to it, and it can really show you something that's beyond the conceptual mind. Okay, good. What else to say about this? Yeah, so again, looking for the lack of activation. All right, so what are some of the benefits of doing this practice? So firstly, rest is very, very subtle. And so in as much as it is subtle, it's kind of hard to concentrate on. And if you're focusing on something and trying to concentrate on something that's difficult to find and catch, it's like a good object for working the concentration muscle, we'll say. And the other aspect that I find interesting is how rest really works sensory clarity. So again, like I was saying earlier, rest is like this thing that's either not there or barely there. It's so subtle. And if you're paying attention to such a subtle thing, you really have to lean into the sensory clarity aspect of it. So again, in this respect, it really works the sensory clarity angle. And then onto the third piece in kind of Shinzen's definition of mindfulness, which is equanimity. So equanimity, so I think rest really helps equanimity grow, because rest and equanimity are very similar, right? They're kind of proximate to each other. So equanimity is this, the way that Shinzen defines it is this not pushing or pulling on your sensory experience, being at peace. And then we could even say it's like resting into your sensory experience, resting into the way that things are, and cultivating this quality of unconditional rest, unconditional peace with what is. So I think in as much as that we can kind of almost interchange the terms, I think it points to how this feel rest technique can develop equanimity. Also, okay, so more benefits. And let me just reiterate that motivation to meditate, I think, is central. Why? Because if you're motivated and you enjoy it, you'll do more of it. If you do more of it, the transformation will happen. So back to motivation. All right, so if you pay greater attention to rest per se as a thing itself, then you know how it is like anything that you pay attention to grows. It gets easier to detect and it grows in your life. So actually, this is a way of sensitizing yourself to rest. And I would expect that it will help with things like sleep, stress management, etc. Okay, here's something else I wrote a while back on this talk. So when you pay attention to rest, you are likely to see the whole system vanish, right? So if you think about it, like what is like not very active and what is like not there and totally obliterated, totally ceased, is very it is similar, right? It's just like kind of like, you know, the how to put this, the event arises and then it passes and it kind of asymptotically approaches zero. And that zero is, we can call it cessation, nirodha, nirvana, etc. So by following rest until it's gone, that's another Shinzen term, it can help us get really profound insights into the nature of life. All right, when should you do this practice? Well, the upshot about the feel rest practice is like the rest of the Vipassana practices, very easy to do in most situations. Maybe not driving. See, here, feel is good for driving, but in most situations you can do this feel rest. Also, I think that it's a really good practice to do as a background practice, right? There are many activities, like, and particularly background practices are when you put like 80% of your focus on the actual thing that you're engaging with. Let's say you're presenting at a meeting or something, right? And the things that you have to put most of your attention to are the things in life that are often stressful, right? So it seems like that stress and the feel rest technique kind of go together naturally because we want to balance out stress and not get stressed out, right? So in a situation like you're presenting at work, you know, you could just kind of in the background try to, and this is only going to kind of work after you have a little bit of momentum in your feel rest practice, but then just try to stay in touch with this quality of rest. So that would be an example of using it as a background practice. Also, I think that when you're in bed and you're just falling asleep or trying to fall asleep, I think it's a fantastic time to do this practice. So then you would just be noting the sensations of rest, the sensations of that are kind of inactive when you go to bed. And that really helps bridge waking meditation and then sleep. And also I would go ahead, this is not a standard piece of advice for the feel rest technique, but try to hold on to that consciousness into sleep. And that does work. And you can manage to meditate while we sleep as well over time. Okay, good. So, okay, of course, like with any practice, there are things to watch out for. And now this is absolutely generic. With any practice starting out, there's always going to be that groping and grasping period. It's not going to be clear. It's not going to be very satisfying to do. And in a sense, every practice, right, when you start with it, is an equanimity practice. It's kind of frustrating, difficult, etc. So be forewarned, don't expect that it be easy right off the bat. Also, I'll say this, that when, for some people, some of us manage our stress and anxiety through kind of like an additional stress. And so sometimes when we do a practice that really leans towards tranquility, like this practice, there can be kind of a quick releasing of that kind of monitoring and that kind of like secondary stress that kind of holds it all together. And people can kind of have a little bit of a flare up of, let's just say, afflictive emotions, because the defense mechanism that would otherwise be in place to keep it tamped down and maintained is arrested due to the rest practice. So I just want to point that out. If it happens, it's not that big a deal. Just do something else, whatever, come back to the practice later, or don't come back to the practice, do a different practice. Okay, good. Okay, so let's just reiterate how to do the practice. So it's a noting technique, right? So noting means really noticing, and then it's also a labeling technique. We can label. So the labels that we'll typically use with feel rest are feel and rest. Okay, good. So, and again, what's the importance of labeling? It chews up the verbal processing capacities of the mind. And so when those capacities are chewed up, it's harder to allocate them towards thinking. And generally speaking, thinking is not going to be what you want to do in meditation, right? Okay, very good. The next thing that the noting does is it's a feedback loop that lets you know, aha, yes, 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 I actually am paying attention. This is good. Here I am. I'm hearing myself say the notes. Well, by goodness, if you're hearing yourself say a note, there's like a 97% chance you're going to be meditating. So that's good enough. All right. So that's about the labeling aspect. So then now here's the issue of scope. Like, see, for example, right now I'm going to do rest around my entire sensory experience. Rest. Rest. Whereas now I'm going to put my attention on my left foot and just notice rest there. Rest. Rest. So to be clear, we can use variable kind of breadth here, right? It can be the whole body. It can be only the emotional body. That would be a really fantastic way to firstly bring about the skill set of being able to calm your own emotions, and also to even study your own emotions and gain some mastery over your emotions. Or it could be over the whole body, or it could be, you could do it, if any of you have ever done a Goenka retreat, you could do the feel rest technique coupled with body scanning. So feel the feet, the legs, hips, stomach, yada, yada, etc. So these are all different aspects of the practice. That's okay. So then, okay, but more about like finding this rest. So we're looking for what is inactive. So what I just typically do is I kind of open up the entirety of awareness and just notice the stillness. Now that might not be available to you. So you could also just focus on a certain area where there's like relative rest or relative deactivation. Generally, you're not going to find perfect deactivation. Let's see here. What else? Give me a minute. Also, you can notice rest on the out breath. So for example, you could actually do this practice. This would be kind of a modification to it, where you're just focusing on the restful attributes, the restful aspects of the out breath. And you maybe extending the out breath and just noticing that, and then falling deeper into rest that way. Let's see, there's one other aspect. Oh yeah. So something else that you can do, and we'll do this as an exercise together to sensitize ourselves to rest, is like, now let's just all take our right fist and clench. Just clench as hard as you can. And then feel that, clench, 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 tight, tight, tight. And then now release. And you can bring the arm down. And then now pay attention to the sensation of dissipation. Noticing it dissipate. And so this kind of decrease of activation, That's also rest. That's a relative rest. So now let's just do it with our right bicep, and don't give yourself a Charlie horse. Just tense your right bicep, and then now release, and just notice. And to just make sure you're on task, you can say rest, rest, rest. Okay, good. And I will reiterate the instructions as we get into the formal practice. So, okay, how's it going with those instructions? What questions do you have? What comments do you have? How can I further clarify this?
Hello.
Hey.
Hi, Cedric. Firstly, let me just say it's good to have you back. Glad,
Yeah.
glad that your family was safe during the.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, just a quick question.
Uh-huh.
I'm not very clear on how to do the practice.
Okay.
So, do I have to tense and release my arm and then pay attention to that and then cycle that over and over again?
No,
Was
although
that
you
just
could do that.
yeah?
Yeah, okay, so let me take another shot at explaining it, and thank you for speaking up to convey that it's not clear. And yeah, I'm doing well. There was my house was struck
Just a
by.
demonstration.
Oh yeah, sure. I'll go through it, but yeah, I just want to mention, yeah, my house was struck by lightning, and it kind of blew up the internet. But so that's why we didn't have class last week. Anyhow, okay. Yeah. So okay. Firstly, it's just a noting technique, right? Just like see, hear, feel, and you can do it with a narrow focus of attention or a broad. When I do it, I do a broad focus of attention. I just like kind of sit in open awareness, and I just notice how it's restful. That's all I do. That might work for you, or it might not. And generally, kind of with probably all of life, but especially with meditation, it's all about exploring, getting comfortable, seeing what kind of angle you got to take to kind of come into it and make it work for you. So one way to do it is, like I said, right? Open awareness and just noticing the restfulness. Another way, and Camille, this might be a very kind of, I think this is a very, how to put this, kind of, these are like kind of good concrete instructions. You could do a body scan going from the feet up to the head, and simply at every major body part, note what is restful. Note particularly what is inactive. In a sense, notice what is not there. Notice the subtlety of nothing being there. Another, and this would be kind of a very traditional, typical way of doing it, would be to simply open up awareness, not try to have all of it in awareness all at once, and rather just kind of let your attention float within open awareness and just picking up on what is kind of prominent and obviously restful in your experience. So, maybe I'll notice, okay, oh, the out breath is restful, rest. And then you just note rest. And then you might notice how, oh my gosh, there's this lack of activation in the back. Usually I might feel pain there, and right now there's nothing. There's just peace. And so you would note rest. And then you notice how your feet are on the ground. There's just this contact, and there's just this vagueness of the feet touching the floor, but there's something restful about it. And then also, to kind of make it sound a little bit more woo-woo, you can try to feel the inherent restfulness and inherent stillness that is in activity, because there's a certain way that activity and rest and stillness are all just the same. And so you can kind of like pay attention to that and see if you can like hear it or feel it. Okay, am I speaking to your question? It's a really good question.
Yeah, that clarifies a lot of things.
Uh-huh.
So, from what I understand, the first two ways will be one, you do a body scan, and in
Yep.
each part of your body, you identify parts that are restful. The other one is that you just free form, you seek out rest within your body, wherever it may arise. Okay. Just one quick question, though.
Please.
So, um, what is the difference between well, clearly they're different, but I'm not sure how to explain the difference. But what's the difference between feelings of restfulness and not feeling a part of your body? So I don't
Not
have this.
feeling. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so like I don't have enough sensitivity that when I close my eyes, I can feel every part of my body.
Right.
I know it exists, but I don't feel it.
Right.
Uh, so is that a type of rest, or is it just a lack of sensitivity?
Um, I don't know. It's actually interesting, and there's a certain way that it might not. Okay, so with meditation, it's quite interesting. Just like the kind of leaning in and intending to do the practice kind of delivers like 80% of the benefits. And also, let me just generally say that in a sense, all of life is ineffable. It's like incomprehensible. But meditation is more obviously kind of like the meditative state is more hard to put into words. So words are going to fail us, and that's not a big deal. It's not a problem. So let's see here. But like coming back to your question in a more terra firma way, like if you just look at what is like, okay, so I mean, if you don't notice something that is not there, you just don't notice it. And if you don't notice something that is there, you don't notice it. But what we're doing with the feel rest technique is a bit of like a figure ground reversal, right? We are entirely wired to notice what is there, what is attention worthy, what's like in your face, right? But you don't notice what's not there. Like right now, my hands are not all waving like usual. And like it's not noticeable, right? You're not probably thinking about, oh my gosh, his hands are not up, whereas like right now it's more obvious. So in a sense of like noticing how the hands are not there is like noticing an inactivation, like a deactivation. And so that's one of the aspects of rest. Also, let me just say that if you notice tranquility, that's also rest as well. But that's one of the kind of more I don't know, I'd say maybe insightful or perplexing aspects of rest is just noticing what's not there. So let's just see if we can do it. So, and then the way that you typically do this of finding something that is extremely subtle or finding something that is quote unquote not there is you just simply park your attention in some like space, right? And then you just notice. So right now, I'm going to put attention on my left forearm. And why don't you put your attention somewhere that it just seems to have no activation. And see if you can feel the bones of your left forearm. And now, okay, so we can wrap that up. So now I'll say this, that are you really feeling something that's not there, or are you feeling something really subtle? I don't know. But the practice works. And like, let me give you another very similar practice that kind of relies on this listening for something that, or rather like trying to detect something that's not there or extremely subtle. Okay, so this is a meditation, so let's all straighten up. Push the crown of the head up towards the ceiling. And now listen. Listen for the boats in the docks of a city that is very distant. So I'm going to listen for the ships in the New York City harbor. And they're blowing their foghorns. And the sound is there, but it is so extremely subtle that it's not there. Now pay attention to that. Listening so careful for this very fine sound. That's actually a Mahamudra instruction that helps you kind of open up spacious awareness. So in the same way, when we try to feel a feeling that's not there, or so subtle that you don't know if it's there or not, it does something to awareness that, rather to, we'll say, the whole body mind, that is really good at kind of dropping us into a meditative state. Okay, did that speak to your question?
Yeah, thanks, Cedric. It actually does make sense. The Mahamudra practice you explained also
Yeah,
helped a little bit. Like feels like you're stretching your senses to feel
yeah,
something. Very
yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And and again, I think what's also kind of cool about this is that we're taking this, like in pragmatic dharma, there's this dictum: do what works, right? And so, are we really feeling something that's not there? Who knows? I don't know, but it works. The practice works. So.